I'm Matt Davis, Director of Customer Success here with Censys Technologies. Welcome to the Field Guide. On today's episode, we're going to be going over ground station assembly, mission upload and refinement, and pre-flight checks. So, start off, we go with our ground station radios here. So the top part is your LTE radio and the bottom part is your SDR. So the four smaller antennas go on the top. You want to be sure you put them on the outside posts. These are for GPS and Wi-Fi in the center, and we're not using that in this configuration. So we just take those four short antennas, righty-tighty, and then once we get them screwed in, we'll orient those all straight up. Once you get those on, you'll move over to the longer SDR antennas, and those go in the two posts in the back. Same thing, orient straight up. And once you get those on, take this little sleeve, and that helps keep them oriented in the optimal position. Next, we have the power cable for your ground station radio. It has two little knuckles that fit in, and then turn righty-tighty and lock. And you have your Ethernet, which goes into the only open slot here, number 1. And then we take the other end of that Ethernet, and we plug it in to the back of our dock. Now we also have our remote ID antenna. This is to give the location of the operator. Just uncoil that, top side up, and we plug that into the back of our dock as well. Now at this point we can go ahead and power everything on. So we take our XT60 into our ground station battery. And then go ahead and power on our aircraft. Now here on our console, we'll go ahead and get AMC opened up. So it'll take a couple minutes for that to get connected. Now I do have my thumb drive here that I saved that pre-planned mission earlier on. So I can go ahead and insert that into the back of my docking station as well. So now we're here with AMC open and we're connected to the aircraft. So one of the first things we want to do with this thumb drive is to get our new mission on there. So we go to the Arterian drop down, that top left button, and we go to plan. Now once we're on the plan view, along the top here you'll see missions, and we see no missions are available right now. So all we have to do is select import, and we go to that disk we just put in. There's my demo plan 1, and open. That brings it right in, and now that mission is loaded for here on my local GCS. Now we'll scroll down and zoom into my location. All right, so the first thing we'll do here is whenever we plan this, we didn't know the exact spot on the ground we would be. And if you actually look here, my mission ending here, 8 land, is actually out in front of our headquarters. So we're going to go ahead and snap all locations to our aircraft. All we're going to do for that, on the start tab here, just hit that and move to vehicle position. And now we'll go ahead and start verifying the items on our plan. So our altitude frame for takeoff is height, HGT, that's all relative to takeoff. We always wanted that for our start and end. The altitude for my transition here is 120 feet. That is perfectly fine for here. I can see that all my trees around me are lower than that, and that's a safe altitude to go to. Now, one thing I will note is when we made this plan, we were looking at it as estimating there to be a south wind today. So that's why we're transitioning here towards the south direction. But now we get on site today, and the wind's coming out of the north. So all we have to do is just drag and drop our transition direction in the direction we want. Now we're going right into that headwind. Now, if you'll notice one thing, is now it shows that the aircraft plans to transition and make that very sharp left-hand turn. Right as soon as you're starting to come up to airspeed, you don't want to make sharp turns like that. It can lead to a stall condition, which the aircraft would arrest with a quad chute, and then you would just retransition, but rather not go through all that. Our first waypoint should be on course with our transition direction. So we're happy with all the mission start settings. We're going to take that waypoint 2 and move that over on course. So waypoint 2 there you can see is an orbit to altitude. Now that I'm into my mission tab, all my altitude frames are in AGL, above ground level, so it's actually following the terrain like we would expect. The altitude for that orbit is 300 feet, which is my planned altitude for this mission. Orbit radius, I always change that to 250. It's a good radius for the Sentaero. Hit enter, and so now that's a 250-foot radius circle. Now from there we go on to our next mission item. We just hit the little next button here, and that takes us into our first survey. So as we look at that, that's that large area survey we had previously planned. Now when I start looking at this, I'll go over here to this little mountain where the terrain following options are. I do have terrain following checked. My tolerance is within 10 feet, and I'm giving it a climb rate of 5 miles per hour and a descent rate of 5 miles per hour. Just middle of the road, seems to work fine. You can always make it a little bit more aggressive, but the less aggressive you are on those climbs in the sense, the better your image capture will be, your data will be, whatever your payload is. This was planned for the Sony ILX LR1 with a 24mm lens, so that's just as expected. And again, with your surveys, just like you could change the direction of your transition, you can also change the direction of the legs of the survey. As most of the time for a survey, you want it with a crosswind. So I could always just go down to pattern options, and I can adjust that pattern angle to match whatever the weather conditions are that day. So my pattern looks good, 60-60 overlap, I'm happy there. Now I can go over to my next mission item. So whenever you're doing multiple survey types, whether it's corridors or large area surveys, as a break in between them, you have to put just a simple waypoint. So that's where you'll see waypoint 4 here. And that is just an altitude frame AGL, 300-foot altitude. It is just this manual waypoint. Next, it goes into a corridor. Our corridor will start off on this terrain following again. We have all of our vehicle follows terrain set. That's the same way we want it. Sony ILX LR1 is our selected payload, and the path is just as we had planned it. So here, if you wanted to make, here it's a two pass, so you out and back. But let's say you wanted to cover more area, you just take your side overlap and increase that up. There we go, and then you just build on more and more passes by using that slider, just like so. But we're going to leave it that out and back. That matches what we want to do right now. You can see here in the bottom right of the screen it says AGL because we have terrain following selected. So after that mission item, next is another manual waypoint just breaking me out of the corridor, and that and 7 are just bringing me back in towards my ending location. So now when I hit onto the end, I see my actual landing location and my landing orbit. So with that landing orbit, that is where your aircraft is going to fly to at mission altitude and descend down to your transition altitude. So it'll be flying there at 3, in this case, flying there at 300, and it would descend down to the 120 transition altitude. Now, when we see our land, that waypoint 8 there is not where our vehicle is. This is another part of that where I said whenever we plan and where we actually end up on the ground could be 2 different places. Very simple. Here at the bottom of the screen, you see move land to vehicle. Snaps it right over to me. And continuing to adjust, we said now we got here and it's actually a north wind. So I'll just tap this orbit and drag that down to the south. So I would be transitioning into that headwind as is preferred to do. So at this point, I've been all the way through my mission. I'm happy with everything. I've double checked all my altitudes and reference frames. So now we'll just change that to HGT at the end there and hit upload. So once that bar goes across, you will hear a small chime coming from the aircraft letting you know it received it. We did hear that. So now I can start going through all of my pre-flight checks. In order to do that, I will go back to my fly page. First thing I'm going to do is just look across my telemetry. So right now, my satellites, my GPS status is sitting at 19, bouncing to 20 satellites. This is definitely not a spot we'll be launching from. We're right next to a building, so we are blocking a lot of that horizon off, so we're going to miss some satellites doing it like this. And you see my accuracy is a little too high as well. That should be in the 3 to 5 foot accuracy range for horizontal and vertical. Now, this little menu right here, link quality, because we're all over cellular and we're not actually going through AMC, we control all of our radio communications through L-Site Halo. This link quality is not relevant to your operation. The same thing with this menu here of cellular. Whether you see this as enabled or disabled, this is not the cellular that you're flying over. This is another option offered through Arterion that we don't use for our platform. So if you see that status is disabled, has no problem, nothing to do with your flight operation. Now here we go to our battery next. So this is the aircraft battery. We can see that we are 48.29 volts. I always like to keep this more details open. So now I can see a little bit more. So specifically here you can see your current. If you're sitting on the ground, your current should be below 1.5, 2 tops. If you were seeing, 3, 4, 5, or 10 amps on the ground, you have some kind of a current problem going on. Something's not right with your battery. Disconnect. But generally on the ground, you can see about 1.3 to 1.5 amps. Also, you'll see this temperature here. That's actually the temperature of the PDB power distribution board on board the aircraft. You always want to be sure that stays below 150 degrees. All right, now if you go down to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, your heads-up display. So you see GS, AS, and VS. So ground speed, that is your actual speed over the ground. Then your airspeed is your speed through the air. All of us aviation-minded people know that that can be slightly different. Just because you're flying at 40-mile-an-hour airspeed consistently does not mean you are moving that same rate over top of the earth because of things like winds. For instance, if you were flying with a 20-mile-an-hour headwind, you would be going 20 miles an hour ground speed, but 40 airspeed. And then your VS is just any ascent or descent, your climb and descent rates. So, and all those are at 0 on the ground, as they should be, because the aircraft is not moving. Here, your altitude, right now, negative 0.3, 0.2 feet. That should be roughly at 0 within a couple feet. And that should match your climb as you start to take off. But when you're sitting on the ground, should be pretty close to 0. Now our compass heading here, our measurement we take should be within 20 degrees of actual magnetic. So we're reading 99 degrees right there. And my compass is reading 96 degrees. So everything checks out there. All right, so now for checking your airspeed, it is a lot easier to use 2 people. That way one person can sit here and monitor the AS, which is your airspeed, which is what that pitot tube is picking up, and a second person to blow and create pressure. So I'm watching my AS. It's currently at 0. Go ahead and go, Kevin. There was our live sensor. We saw up to 39.7 miles per hour right there. So we were all good. Appreciate you. Now, one note for checking your airspeed sensor. We do have 2 pitot tubes on board the plane. One is live, one is a redundancy. So only one is going to be reading active at the time. So if you blow on one side, it stays at 0. Just have the person go over the other side and test that one. All right, so now that we've checked through our HUD, the next thing we're going to move on to is the vehicle status page. That is this green box right up here in the top left. This is where you go through everything about your aircraft. So we can see our system health. It's all green. All of our sensors are green. As we showed previously, this is where you would go to do your airspeed sensor calibration if it was required, if you weren't sitting near 0, but we are today. And this is, we can see our remote ID is green. And last thing, so Here at the bottom, you see overview, which is where we are now, then pre-flight checklist, safety. I would love to say that you go left to right, but it makes more sense to start at safety. So here we go, the safety tab. And this is where you'll check your RTL altitude. So here, the return to launch altitude last used here was 200. Well, our mission's flying at 300, so I'd rather have it there. So all I have to do is tap that box, 300, enter. All your low battery fail-safes come preset off parameters that we build here at Censys, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Our standard for if a C2 loss, you go into return mode. These are just any other fail-safes. Really outside of RTL is all a standard build that we do. So you don't have to worry about anything else there. If you were using geofences, right here at geofence behavior, the action on breach, that's where you could decide if you want to do just warn you if you breach the geofence, go into a hold mode, go into return mode. That's where you take those options. I generally like to use hold, so the aircraft just stops there at the geofence and a loiter. All right, so now that we've got those safety items knocked out, now you just go to the pre-flight checklist. So first thing up, joystick control. Now this is talking about what you do manually with your controller. So in order to test this, I will change the vehicle from hover mode into aero mode. Now I will go right and left. That checks my ailerons. When you turn right, your right aileron should go up. When you turn left, your left aileron should go up. When you yaw left, both of your tails should go to the left. When you yaw right, both your tails should go to the right. Those actions are matching the inputs. So I'm going to check that one off. It auto checks battery. So it says that yes, your battery is good. It passed. Radio, we are connected. We have our blue lights. So that is secured and passed. We previously inspected, made sure our wings and tails were secure. We tested our airspeed sensor. Our battery is secure. I did strap it in myself. Now here you see control surfaces checked. Now I manually did those checks a minute ago, making sure that I can do them with the RC. Now I want to be sure that the Skyno can communicate with all the servos. So when I tap that, automated option will come up. It will go up, all down, and all neutral. Now it verifies here. Do the control surfaces move freely in both directions? Yes. And then our last items here before launch. Plan view items are the mission, takeoff, and landing safe. We went through and reviewed all this stuff first. Our RTL altitude, we just checked that before this. Winds and precipitations. It is not raining, and there is no wind here in Florida right now. I left all of our fail-safes that are standard config. Takeoff ops are cleared from obstacles and people. I would not want to take off right here this close to the building. If I was actually doing launch right now, I would definitely move it over. Want about a 20 to 25 foot radius around the aircraft. But for the means of this video demonstrations, we have it right here next to us. So that is cleared. And we'll go back into multi-copter mode in the hover. And now we're ready for launch. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and continue viewing in the future. If you have any other questions or comments, please leave it below. We'd love to do more episodes that are relevant to your operations. Thanks again for joining us, and take care.